Done. Itaquile, Amash, Ukmisiaya, Akasta, Hakanaktan Squish, Olnumps Chalop, Ukmisiaya. I just wanted to thank the First Nations whose land we're on today, giving us the honor and privilege to be able to present today. We're going to do an update of where we are in the class action for the Day Scholars. It's moving very quickly. We're gaining a lot of momentum, and we're going to do a brief presentation, but I just wanted to let you know that we were in certification hearings in Vancouver for 4 days in April. But I just want to read a quote today before we start, because I really believe that this is so important. We now recognize that it was wrong to separate children from rich and vibrant cultures and traditions, that it created a void in many lives and communities, and we apologize for having done this. We now recognize in separating children from their families, we undermine the ability of many to adequately parent their own children and sow the seeds for generations to follow. We apologize for having done this. We now recognize that far too often these institutions gave rise to abuse or neglect and were inadequately controlled, and we apologize for failing to protect you. Not only did you suffer these abuses as children, but as you became parents, you were powerless to protect your own children from the suffering from the same experiences, and for this we are sorry. The burden of this experience has been on your shoulders for far too long. The burden is properly ours as a government, as a country. This is a section from the apology from the Prime Minister. I used this in my affidavit when we went before the courts. If they were sincere about this apology, we wouldn't have to be going to court to seek redress for the Day Scholars who were left out of the process altogether. As we were in court in April in Vancouver, and I asked our lawyer to read this section back to the judge, the lawyer for Canada stood up and said, that's not what the Prime Minister meant. So I want to know, what did he mean when he apologized for the abuses that our people have suffered through the atrocities of having to attend those residential schools? Now we're seeking redress through the courts for the Day Scholars. I want to thank the TRC and the Commission. I really want to thank the TRC and the Commissioners for allowing us to be part of this journey. But I just want to say to Canada, in that court in April, when they were talking about reconciliation, it has to be more than just a word. Their actions have to take some form, because when their closing comments, when we sat in that courtroom, was, we're going to fight this vigorously. Well, if you're about reconciling, why do you have to fight us? Stand before us and let's reconcile us and seek that justice. As I stand before you with Kamloops and Shishalh, we've given that commitment, and we are going to go right to the end, and we seek that justice for our Day Scholars. We even started a webpage for people to get involved, and it's called justiceforDayScholars.com, and it'll be active before we leave Ottawa and head our way back home. So we're going to go through our presentation. Now, we do have a PowerPoint that we want to do. I want to introduce Joanne Godfredson from the Kamloops First Nation. We do have some of our executive and council members from Kamloops here, and we do have some representatives from Shishalh here. I really want to hold my hands up to them, because the people in Shishalh are really trying to reconcile from the efforts of the pains of the residential school, and my hands go up to them. And my hands go up to every single one of you, all the survivors, of what you've had to endure to get us to this point. And my only goal is that our children never have to go through this again.
Very thankful to be here today. I'm Joanne Godfredson, and my traditional name is the Lady Buffalo Woman from the Kamloops Shishalh. I sit on the executive and along with Chief Garry Feschkuk, Chief Shane Garfordson, and Councillor Katie Garfordson, and Councillor Randy Joe, and Councillor Chris August from shishalh. We've partnered up and filed a class action on behalf of the day scholars, as Chief Garry said. I'm more of the technical person that makes sure that every I is crossed and every T is dotted, vice versa. But being a teacher, I'm also very want to make sure that you have a really good understanding of what a day scholar is. It's defined in our litigation as an individual who attended a federally owned and operated Indian residential school, but did not live there. That's really important because even though we didn't live there, we were not safe from the horrendous and devastating effects of residential schools. These scholars were prohibited from speaking our language and our culture. Many experienced sexual, physical, spiritual, and emotional abuse. Continued to suffer long-term effects of Indian residential schools. That sounds pretty familiar, right, with everybody that's here.
Go ahead, keep going.
Ongoing need for reconciliation for day scholars that are ineligible to receive the common, or were ineligible of receiving the common experience. Day scholars were also left out of the apology by the permanent Prime Minister Harper. We have the Kamloops Indian Residential School picture there. It was one of the largest in Canada. It opened in 1890 and closed in 1978. Attendance in 1940 to 1960 averaged between 350 and 500 students per year, and estimated over 200 living day scholars who attended the Kamloops Indian Residential School. Shishalh, our sister nation, operated in 1904 to 1975. Attendance in the 1940s until the school's closure averaged between 100 and 100 students per year, estimated over 100 living day scholars in the Shishalh nation. Kamloops and Shishalh Day Scholar class action claim was filed in federal court August 18, 2012. We have 3 classes. The first one is the survivor class. The survivor class of day scholars of the Kamloops and Kamloops and Shishalh residential schools. We have a descendant class, which means children and descendants of the survivor class. Then we have a band class, which means the entirety of Shishalh and Kamloops. I know we're focusing on 2 bands right now, but we're going to lead you down this beautiful journey. The nature of our claim. We are seeking declaration that the operating the residential school program, Canada breached the fiduciary, constitutional, common law, and statutory duties to the plaintiffs and the Aboriginal rights. Seeking damages for cultural and linguistics and social losses caused by the government. That's really important because, you know, our language is what makes our culture. It's what makes us who we are as First Nations people. Progress to date. Canada brought procedural motions before the certification hearing. Canada has appealed a lot of our motions that we put forth, and we've been lucky that it's always been in our favor. The certification motion took place April 13th to the 16th, 2015, in federal court. The certification hearing was held over 4 days in federal court in Vancouver. Chiefs from across Canada came to show their support. We even had special permission that our chiefs wear their headdresses and our women wear their traditional dresses in the courtroom. It was amazing to sit in there, and Canada's lawyers come in and they really look back at all of us. That courtroom was full. Community members, survivors, and descendants were also in attendance, and we had our plaintiffs in the front row. We have 5 from each nation. We expect that Judge Harry will make a decision by fall. That's according to our lawyers, but according to our traditional people and the executive, they're going to make it a lot sooner.
Yep. So the post-certification, when the case is certified, the 3 classes will either go to trial, where a judge will determine whether classes should be compensated for the claimed losses, or the Crown may want to negotiate a settlement, and either party may appeal the decision. Once the case is certified, there will be an opportunity to opt in or opt out of the day scholar class action, because we're gaining a lot of interest from the nations across Canada now, and a lot of them want to come in. So if they're certified, there's an opt-in clause, and we have an opt-in model already established to allow other nations, and we have a lot of calls from individuals wanting to find out where we're at with the class action. We're hoping it'll be certified in the fall, and then we can move forward. Because one of the main components that we're going after Canada is they breached their fiduciary obligation to First Nations people for the loss of language, loss of culture from the torture in these schools. When I heard the announcement when I landed last night in Ottawa, that even the judge was calling it a cultural genocide. That's the whole issue why we're here, because of that genocide. We have support, which Joanne already mentioned. We had the national chief and all the regional chiefs attend the certification hearings with us, sat with us in the courts during those certification hearings in Vancouver. We have supports from the Union of BC Indian Chiefs, the Assembly of First Nations, the First Nations Summit, the Federation of Saskatchewan Indian Nations, and every day we're receiving more and more momentum. So we do have an executive, which is myself, Chief Shane Godfredson, Councillor Randy Joe, Councillor Chris August from shishalh, Councillor Katie Godfredson and Joanne Godfredson from Kamloops. To summarize all this, I really believe with the momentum we're gathering and with the support of other nations, and I really want to thank the Commission again for allowing this opportunity for us to opt in, because I really believe that no one should be left out, that if we're going to be seeking this reconciliation, then Canada has to open its doors now and seek that redress that we're looking for, because if they're talking reconciliation, then they have to get past denial, because denial is not going to get them anywhere, because they're fighting us vigorously and through the court process. When if they included the day scholars in the settlement, we wouldn't be standing here today. We'd be sitting here talking about how we're going to reconcile with the rest of the country.